Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the Take for Market Rebellion on this Friday. Yes, we are at Friday. What a wonderful week we've had. We've had earnings week, but it's been stolen. It's been hijacked from who? The Fed. And a lot of the different numbers that we have been receiving. We got retail numbers today. Those were much better than expected. As a matter of fact, it was a really interesting day yesterday. We were just talking about this before I came on here, but I was looking at the Dow and the fact that we were hammered. We were down 100 plus points early parts of the day yesterday. Recovered, got back into the green, sold off again to be down another 100 points, recovered in the final hour or so to actually finish the day positive, up about 50 points. And it was Honeywell, it was United Health, one of the names that I had as the final trade the other day. And the reason I did so was we had some unusual option activity in there, but also just looking out into the future and what they were able to say. And I think the reason that that stock was able to turn around yesterday and get into positive territory had a lot to do with what they were saying about their forecast for the rest of the year. So that, and then throw in Home Depot. Those were sort of the leadership area yesterday in terms of the Dow. The Nasdaq started out nice and flat. It's, we've seen these kind of days before. Steadily started to sell off, continued. It did not look anything like the way we rallied back in the Dow. Just continued to slide, and by the end of the day, we actually finished down more than 100 points on the Nasdaq. A lot of that being, of course, in the tech area, but semiconductors absolutely got hammered yesterday, and we've talked about this. We've said it's big cap tech, it's semiconductors, and biotech. That is the melting pot of what you really are looking at when you look at the Nasdaq. There's obviously all kinds of other different categories as well, but you look at the semiconductors, they were down 2.75% yesterday. So that was a pretty significant hit to the downside. Then you add in a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You've got a sprinkle of why we were down about 100 points yesterday. Moderna stood out for us yesterday. And why is that? Stock was up about 5%. Then you go to the post market, and then the conversation started to move over towards the S&P and this, that, and the other. Before you know it, that stock absolutely ripping to the upside. As a matter of fact, today, even with the market getting pulled down, we have Moderna was up last I looked. It was up about 9%. So on top of yesterday's nice 5% move to the upside. So Moderna definitely was something that stood out. What else also stood out for me was crude. Crude's having a hard time finding sort of that footing right now. It did close underneath 72, and today a little bit more pressure. I'll get into that in just a second. With that, the energy space down about 1.5%. And then you look over at those big beta names that were actually the leadership to the downside of that movement that we were just talking about there. You look at Diamondback, you look at Halliburton, those kind of names getting pulled down yesterday and then influencing, of course, the energy space. Tech struggled, and that was part of it as well, down about 0.8%. Names like Twitter, Google, Facebook, even Microsoft, they traded okay, but they finished a little bit lower. And that was something where we've had some nice moves of late. Matter of fact, yesterday we were just talking about how the fact that we hit a new high for Apple, 150, but still some of those pressures, and we've got that intraday movement, and a lot of the time we've seen where sometimes they can move either to the downside and recover, or get to the upside and then get a little bit of a sell-off. Yesterday, certainly the sell-off with that 1% move in the Nasdaq. Financials, also interesting, but we had some positives out there too. US Bank had a really nice day yesterday, talking about some of those regionals, and throw in AIG as well, having a pretty decent day. So volumes yesterday, 39 million contracts, another big, wonderful day in terms of the derivatives markets. Who are the leadership roles? Well, you can tell me who's number one already. You've been on this podcast before. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Apple, 2.5 million contracts yesterday. Throw in AMC, 1.3 million contracts yesterday. Tesla, 1.2 million contracts yesterday. We continue to see this sort of a theme, and AMC does continue to be part of that top 4 or 5. Yesterday, actually, number 2. NEO also, surprisingly, 550,000 contracts, really kind of pushing up there as well. But a big day, 39 million contracts. So we come into today, we get these retail sales numbers. They looked really pretty outstanding, especially if you look back to May, where they were a little bit disappointing. So we start off the day, the Dow's up about 75 points in the pre-market. You look over at the Nasdaq, it's having a wonderful start to the day, up about 55. The Nasdaq continues to hold on to it pretty decently, but then you look over at the Dow, just kind of easing back as we get a little bit deeper into this first hour of the trading day. But in this first hour, last I saw, we were actually looking at a Dow that was down 100 plus points. It was down maybe 140 or 50 points, probably moving around still. We know that there's that intraday volatility that we see and some of the movements and so forth. Last I looked, I saw the Nasdaq down close to 50 points after being up 55 points in the pre, opening in the 50 plus point category, 65 points early on, and then that big flip that I'm talking about now. We had the 10-year perking up a little bit. It was like at a 138. Last I looked, it was a 131. We had so much movement in this first hour. A lot of what I was looking at, it just changed and turned. And oftentimes that happens maybe after the first hour or so. But this first hour, just some fairly dramatic moves. I talked about crude getting underneath 72. How about today being underneath 71? So you can see sort of the theme here. It's sort of impacting all different areas of the market right now. Bitcoin was 32,000. It was pulling back a little bit as well. Nothing huge though. Bitcoin actually has been very, very steady Eddie for the most part, although it has pulled back underneath that level where we were sort of trapped for a little while, but definitely some pressure there. Early leaders, technology, consumer discretion, and energy. They were all leading to the upside. That completely flipped. Technology still holding positive last I looked, but probably moving and shifting around also. Consumer discretion, that rolled over. Energy absolutely rolled over because it was in positive territory. And then suddenly it's down more than 1%. So we've got all of these intraday moves that are really having a huge impact. The Dow was over 35,000. And now on this pullback, obviously, we're giving up those numbers as well. Moderna, I mentioned that one, very strong. But old tech this morning, early at least, we had the leadership of Microsoft, of Salesforce, of Intel, of Apple, of Cisco, all of which were the leadership role. Again, that old school tech. Now, they've given back some of that as well. So we're seeing a lot of movement within the markets, and it continues and it will continue. We'll see how the rest of the day plays out. We're only 1 hour deep into the day. But we were just talking about this as well. Volatility is kind of interesting because of the fact that you start to see this, I wouldn't want to say sharp sell-off, but from the highs, a pretty significant sell-off in a fairly short period of time. And yet the volatility index actually was dropping. And last I looked, it was down about 2% or so, pushing towards those lower levels of 16. So a lot of interesting things going on within the markets today. Got two unusuals. We're going to get out of here. So lows. Now, with this market pullback, we talk about retail sales being strong. We got a little bit of a market pullback, but lows early is one of the first hits of the day for unusual. We had a buyer. Stock was trading around 197.60. We had a buyer of 6,400 of next Friday's expiring, July 23rd expiring, the 202.50 strike. So those are only going for about 36 cents to 55 cents. So not a whole lot of premium, but it is going to take a significant move, $5 plus type move, to really start getting these options to really ramp up to the upside. And it'll be something interesting to watch. But we are seeing that. We even saw a little activity in Home Depot as well. Just a little bonus there. So next, Microsoft. Microsoft's pretty interesting as well because we know how strong this stock has been. It just continues to just drive and drive. And I think a few weeks ago when people were, I was on the halftime report and they said to me, what do you think? Where's Microsoft next? I said 300. A lot of people scoffed at that. Well, I don't know if they're scoffing anymore. Stock was trading 283.88 this morning. Pretty nice move just in the last couple of weeks. But it was trading there 6,100 of the October. So if somebody's going out in time, I'm talking very unusual. Everything's been short of late, as you know. 1 week out, 2 days out, 2 weeks out, very, very short term. Here we're seeing somebody going out and grabbing October. They're going for the October 285 call. So call it an at the money call. So in other words, about where the stock is trading. They're going out to October, bought these. They were $10.60 and as much as $11.25 on the buying of these 6,000 options. Obviously, as they were buying, that price was moving along with the stock price. And that's what was driving that price over $11. So a very expensive option. You're buying time. Because you're going out to October, you're buying the month of July, August, September, and now you get into October. So that's part of the deal. We talk about it all the time. That's why you got to understand the derivatives markets. By the way, Wednesday, we got a really special thing. We got Ryan Mastro and my brother John. They're going to be talking about navigating through the earnings cycle with the use of unusual option activity. So that's going to be something really interesting. You do not want to miss it. You do have to register, so you're going to want to register for that as well. That's next Wednesday, so not too far away. I think you're going to want to block out some time for that one. Folks, have a great weekend. Have a safe weekend, and trade them up. Giddy up. Go get them.